Welcome to the Panic Pod. This is a podcast for people who struggle with anxiety disorders, and it's also a safe place to sit down and listen to some advice and the dulcet tones of my northern drone. I'm Joshua Fletcher, also known as AnxietyJosh, and I'm a psychotherapist based in Manchester in the UK. I specialise in working with anxiety disorders after living with anxiety for many years myself. So strap in, and today we're going to talk about the strange, scary symptoms of anxiety. Now, back when I was really anxious, I had a litany of symptoms, and I see them in my practice, when I see people on social media. I get people messaging all the time, and I often put posts out about all the different symptoms of anxiety, and people can resonate and relate with to them. So I thought I'd talk about it today. Anxiety comes with an abundance of them, and I'm going to go through some of the most common, but then also some of the weird and wacky ones that I come across here. Now, a disclaimer: if you are worried about a symptom, do check it out with your doctor. Don't be silly. But if your doctor gives you the okay, or you've had this for a while and you know deep down it's to do with anxiety, then we go with that. But there is a disclaimer there. If you're worried about any symptom, feel free to check it out. So yeah, back when I was anxious, I'm going to go through my own first, and then I'll talk about other ones that I hear. The first one I had, that I've said in previous episodes, was dissociation. This is the one that no one could explain to me. This is where you feel like you're not here, and you just feel weird, and everything looks weird. Your sense of place in the room is just odd. It's like you just can't connect to stuff. It's so frightening because you can't really put words to it. I think the closest I could describe it was looking in a mirror and seeing everything in the mirror and recognizing everything in the mirror and recognizing that it's you're looking at. But it's like you're looking at it from behind glass or something. It was just very odd. I didn't feel in the room. One of my clients actually once described it as being the little alien man inside the head of that robot in Men in Black. You're operating a human automaton. You're seeing through the eyes. You're hearing, but not quite. It's not you that's hearing. And yeah, it was very odd. And I'll do a full episode on that later on in the series. But I just thought I'd start with that one because it's a really common one. So if you feel detached, not like you're in your own body, dissociated, derealized, depersonalized, that's okay. It usually occurs as a result of stress. Another one is I used to obsess about my heart. Why is my heart suddenly thumping? It didn't necessarily beat really fast. Sometimes it did. But sometimes I just get conscious of my own heartbeat. So like it would just feel like it was punching, like thud, thud, thud. And that would frighten me. And then it would palpitate. So heart palpitations are a very common one. It would do, 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 do. Then it would skip beats, which is terrifying. So if you've got anxiety and your heart's suddenly going, you're freaking out. You're like, what's going on here? Is my heart about to stop? Again, disclaimer, go check it out, get the ECGs done and things like I did. But my heart was fine and healthy. But yeah, the palpitations, skip beats, ectopic beats, really common. And obviously with anxious people, who they love to compulse and scan and fix, they fixate on their heart. I remember it was so bad that I wouldn't lie on my side in bed because I was so conscious of my heart beating in my chest. And like just by the mere process of focusing and thinking about my heart, I thought I might affect it. It might beat faster or it might explode or something. And yeah, I'm sat here now, so obviously it's not exploded, but that used to freak me out. And then I used to avoid exercise, going for walks, caffeine, and all these things that I really enjoyed because I was afraid of the heart palpitations or the skip beats or whatever. I now, looking back, I used to get skip beats because when I got bloated, it would put pressure on the sternum. And then what would happen is, to compensate, the heart would suddenly flutter and skip beats just to compensate for that. And because I was so hyperfixated on the chest area, you just end up going round and round in circles. Another really common one is headaches. So you can have a headache from tension mostly. Anxious people, their posture is completely messed up. They hunch forward like this, and all the tension, the adrenaline and cortisol is just focused around here, and it stretches all to the back of the head. And yeah, you get loads and loads of headaches. They scared me because usually when I get a headache, I have some paracetamol or ibuprofen and it's gone. But I remember having a headache for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks even, and it used to freak me out. Until one day I started doing some stretches, like intense stretches, and I suddenly felt all this release and pulling of the scalp, and I was like, oh wow, that's the source of my headache. It takes a lot of energy to be anxious too, so you're going to be dehydrated, and you'll have all types of headaches. Mine felt like a band around my head. It felt like someone was, my head was in a vice, and then I get tension around my eyes. Headaches are a real common one. I mentioned bloating before, so I'm going to talk about bloating. It's very common to be bloated during anxiety, and really annoying and inconvenient. I didn't understand the fight or flight response back then, so here's a quick tip. Regardless of what you put in your body, if you're super anxious, you're in fight or flight mode, so your body's going to shut down that digestion to prioritize threat mode if you're running away from predators or fighting. So whether you've had, your lovely, boring salad or, a quadruple stacked cheeseburger, no matter what's in there, it's going to stop. And for me, I used to bloat because what happens there, and I'll talk about this in another episode, but what happens there is that the intestines clamp down, everything stops, stomach acid builds up because your body's like, that's not the priority. And as a result, I'd bloat. But I'm in a hypersensitive mood. I am in a sensitized state that we mentioned before in previous episodes, and I'm really sensitized to everything that's going on in my body. And if you're listening to this podcast, then there's a good chance that you might be too. And so then I was bloated, and then bloated actually contributed to chest pain, chest tension, heart palpitations, the lot. So any little anomaly in what I was feeling would trigger adrenaline, and around I go. The joys of the sensitized state, and so the bloating was for me personally a big one. Obviously, it's part of digestion as well, so it can affect your toileting. You might have to go to the toilet more often than usual, or the opposite might happen. You might be worried that you're not going to the toilet or done a bowel movement or something like that because, again, the body is not prioritizing digestion. It's prioritizing, just in case you have to fight off a horde of ninjas in the supermarket. And so that's okay. But again, we can obsess and compulse like I certainly did. I was just taking notes. When was the last time I went to the toilet? Is it frequent enough? Have I got bowel cancer? Have I got it was just endless. So that's a very common symptom of anxiety too. A big one is dizziness. Now, of course you're going to get dizziness. When we're anxious, when we go into threat mode, the body has to prioritize blood flow to our major muscles. So a lot of the blood flow that's in our brain, suddenly go, hey, the ninjas are back. Bang, the amygdala triggers the threat response and sends blood down to your biggest muscles, which is your ass and your legs and your core, to engage you in fight or flight. I need to run, or I need to karate kick like Danielson. I need to do something to get out of this. And so therefore, there's blood pressure changes in your body. That as well is that your breathing intensifies as well. So you might be taking in more oxygen and not expelling enough carbon dioxide. And as a result, you're going to feel lightheaded and dizzy. But if you're in the sensitized state, like I was, that's also a problem. We misinterpret a very normal process as a brain tumor, or maybe something's wrong, an aneurysm, maybe I'm having a stroke or collapsing. Misinterpreting the threat response, a very normal response, but because it's not activating in a place that makes sense, we misinterpret it. So I used to avoid walking, going out, bright lights, doing all these things, thanking the threat response, not getting the credit, because I didn't like that feeling of dizziness. What if I get dizzy here? What if I get dizzy at the restaurant? Really common one. I hated feeling lightheaded and dizzy. Another symptom, while we're going through the encyclopedia, if you're still with me, go with it. Even if you don't have the symptom, by the way, it's good to know them just in case you get them, so you don't freak out. Was a lopsided feeling. So I'm going to lump this in with dizziness and lightheadedness. I just had this feeling where I felt lopsided. Like I was walking, like I was going to fall over constantly to my left. I have no idea why that happened. I just attribute it to feeling lightheaded and dizzy. Just lump it in there. Why not? Another one is dry mouth. Of course, you're going to have dry mouth. You're going to be anxious breathing, so, that's really normal. Talking of breathing, a really common one is air hunger. Here's a really fun one. And if you've got OCD, it can be really fun. Air hunger is the feeling where we feel like we're not getting enough of a breath, a satiating breath. You get a full breath and out. But anxious people, they've been hyperventilating at a very low level all day. So they're like, and they don't even know they're breathing like that. Then when they get anxious, or they go on TikTok or YouTube or look at generic stress-reducing advice, they often say, take a deep breath. Yeah, but they don't know that your ass is already anxious and therefore can't take a deep breath. And what do we do when we're in a sensitized state? We freak out. So then we keep trying to force a full breath, and then we worry and panic that we can't take a full breath, and we think that we can't breathe properly. When actually we can. We've been over-breathing. We have got more than enough oxygen on board, and because our bodies are clever, they will regulate our oxygen intake. It's going, listen, pal, we've got loads of oxygen on board here. We don't need you to keep trying to cram it in. I'm going to slow down the oxygen intake for a while now, just so we can balance out our blood oxygen levels. But again, the sensitized people, we misinterpret it. We do love to do that, don't we? And we start to force it more and more, and it has our attention, and we can compulsively test, fix, and try to breathe like that all day. Another scary one, muscle tension and muscle twitches. You're going to have chest pains, because again, back to posture. Don't be surprised. And bear in mind, your chest muscles are big, strong muscles that take a lot of tension, particularly for anxious people. So our chest muscles can often contract and release, contract and release. And imagine all your muscles when you're anxious, they're like this, like grip tight. Yeah. And then sometimes when anxiety doesn't have our attention, or we're relaxed or we're asleep, they release. And that contraction and release happens all day. And don't be surprised if your muscles start hurting. So with chest pains, you'll get stretching sensations, stabby sensations, and just aches and pains. I used to get these all the time. Now, you mix that with heart palpitations and ectopic beats, you're having a really good party there, because we're anxious people, we misinterpret things. What happens is that we start to panic and assume the worst case scenario. I'm having a heart attack. And I've done this. I've rang the ambulance before because I was freaking out and I thought my heart wasn't working. I don't blame myself for that, but I obviously didn't know a lot about anxiety disorders at that time. And yeah, you're going to get achy muscles and muscle twitches as well. So people can misinterpret muscle twitches. Again, our muscles are being tensed and released all day, Maybe we go for a walk or go to the gym to try and have an outlet. And then they might twitch. And then so we go on Google and ask Google or AI, why are my muscles twitching? And we suddenly go down worst case scenario routes, like, or maybe I've got a neurological condition like MND or MS or something like that, because the brain's looking for threat. It's not interested in the obvious answer. It's interested in the unlikely answer because it's a threat to our health. I mean, there's loads of symptoms of anxiety. Some more obscure ones. Tinnitus used to freak me out. Beep, constantly. I had like 3 tones. I still do now, actually. But I just don't hear it anymore because I've habituated. But that, I think, was a result of constant jaw tension. And because your jaw is so close to your ears, I think that caused mine. But I'm fine now. I live a very happy life. Jaw tension's a big one. Eye floaters, there's a funny one. And visual snow. So we suddenly start to see things in our eyes and we're like, whoa, what's going on here? Little squiggly dots or lights and stuff like that. And again, we're anxious people, we're sensitized, we're going to misinterpret it. Yay! So that's obviously a retinal detachment. That's obviously something. I mean, again, due diligence, go check it out, get it checked out by a health professional. But loads of people have this and they associate it with anxiety. I have a theory that I've always had these eye floaters in my eye. I just didn't notice them until I was in a sensitized state. But everyone's different. Nausea is probably my least favorite of them all. I hate feeling nauseous, but that's a really common one. When you're nervous, you can feel nauseous. When you're excited, you can feel nauseous. And when you're in a sensitized state, you're going to feel nauseous. Some people, they will hyperfixate on that and develop emetophobia, where they think that the danger is nausea and throwing up. But no, feeling nauseous is very common with anxiety and all right. For some people, you might have to throw up now and then. That's cool. I'm not, if you're panicky and that's what you do, that's what you do. I'm not going to fix that. But we work on desensitizing. Then you've got other symptoms. Trembling, sweating's a big one as well. Going hot, going cold, pins and needles in the extremities of your hands and feet. I could go on. I really could. Thirst, no appetite, then loads of appetite. Hot flushes as well, particularly if you're sensitized and, going through the luteal phase of your period or hitting perimenopause or going through the menopause. That's also a fun party. The list goes on and on. I actually put a few articles on my School of Anxiety website detailing some. But remember, it's not the symptoms that's the problem. A lot of people with anxiety think, well, as soon as that scary symptom goes, I won't be anxious anymore. And yet, something else comes along, and then we're like doing the same, because it's our relationship with uncertainty that's the problem. If you listen to that, I hope that, well, I don't hope that that resonates with you really. I hope that you get to a good place. But if you do have any of those symptoms and hearing that being said aloud is helpful, then I'm glad. And it's very real fear when you're in that state. But I'm here to remind you that it's the sensitized state and the misinterpretation of anxiety that's the problem. I just hope that this kind of normalizes that for you. You're not on the brink of death just because you're having a strange symptom accompanied by a threat response. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. This has been the Panic Pod, the place to come to when you've got anxiety, you want to learn more about it and what to do. I'm Joshua Fletcher, also known as AnxietyJosh. Come check me out on Instagram. I've just started TikTok as well, actually. School of Anxiety. So go check out School of Anxiety. It's growing nicely, which I'm really happy about. And you can also check out the Disordered podcast, which is one that I do with Drew and Salata. Anyway, go easy and look after yourself, and I'll catch you soon.